welcome to a surprise stream of the latest AlphaGo. Actually, this is not the latest. We have two more that we haven't released yet. I forgot, Michael. So,
yeah.
so you're getting a little bit of a bonus track here. So, Chris Garlock here, of course, with Michael Redmond. Michael, welcome.
Hello.
Good to have you here. Good to be back online. The double purpose today. This happens to be Giving Tuesday here in the U.S. And as we've mentioned before, a lot of folks have asked us about what they can do to support these streams and the AGA. And so what you can do is you can go to usgo.org and you can click on the donate link up top and make a generous contribution, and that will help out the American Go Association and these streams. So thanks for doing that. And, of course, thanks to Michael for doing these commentaries.
My pleasure.
All right. So we have Stephen, who is producing these. He's taken up the reins from Babs Wanek. So thank you to Stephen for doing that. Those of you watching on the stream can go ahead and ask questions, and Stephen will interact with you and flag questions for me, and I will relay them as appropriate to Michael, who may or may not answer them, depending on how he feels about them. So that's how we'll handle that. And the other thing is that, as I mentioned, we do have, this is game, I think, is this 35?
34. Yeah.
And we have 32 and 33, which we recorded actually months ago before we both got really busy. We'll be releasing those in the next couple of weeks, and we wanted to hold on to those until we got all the production issues and scheduling issues solved so that we could go back to our weekly. And I think we'll stick with our Friday evening releases, although when we actually do the streaming will depend on the availability of Michael and me and Stephen. I think that covers all the details, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, what's the, so to the game.
Yes.
Number 35. We're 34. I'm sorry. For some reason, I'm thinking about 35 already. So what can you tell us about game 34?
One interesting thing about the game is that it's going to have a ponuki towards the center of the board. And, nowadays with people getting new ideas from AIs and stuff, a lot of the old ideas about things like ponukis or joseki and stuff like that have been questioned. A lot of the old values, you might say. And so we're going to see in this game how a ponuki works when an AI does it. So that's one interesting point.
Okay, cool.
Then after that, the game gets very tactical, and there's going to be a lot of calculating because there's a lot of groups that are sort of in between being alive and being dead. You have to figure it out. Like if you made a smiggle problem, a life and death problem out of it, they would be dead. So you have to figure out how it works in the actual game.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Yeah. Cool. All right. So again, folks, this is going to be kind of cool for us because normally I get Michael all to myself, but we're opening up to you viewers. So if you have questions, shoot them to us, and we will try to incorporate them into the commentary. But with that said, let's get off and running. Over to you, Michael.
Right. Yeah, and I should mention that I'm using the OGS platform for the first time to do this.
That's right.
So if I do something really stupid, people should be ready to help me out there. And we do have people watching live, so it should work out that way.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah. But it looks pretty close to what I was doing before, so it should be easy enough.
Good.
And so we have a game with 2, 3, 4 points and 2 star points. Another thing that is sort of interesting in this game is that that black is not playing a pressing move at this point. For instance, this variation here, which would be the natural-looking move here, in which computer programs, Go AIs, as we call them, would usually just want to press here with black and consider it's just good for black. So this kind of thing could happen. And again, the final move that black has just played in the lower left corner is to prevent white from pressing the same way. So this would be an example what I would see if I was using an AI to analyze the game quite often. It's sort of interesting that AlphaGo didn't do that, because computer programs put a very big value on this. Ever since they've started using the networks that AlphaGo, that the people in Google created. So it's the AlphaGo networks that they use to advise us to play this move, but AlphaGo in this case is not playing it. Of course, it's looking like an AI when it jumps into the 3-3 point anyway. Right. A pretty normal Joseki here. This Joseki variations is sort of interesting because AlphaGo started playing this move, and it's become pretty universal. But more recently, a lot of players will also play the extension here. This is also becoming a more popular move. We're going to see that in this game in a different corner, actually. Basically, the knight's move is a bit more volatile in the local position, so it's a bit more dangerous locally after black gets to this position. Sometimes white wants to continue locally.
I had a question about this because I was up visiting my buddy Phil last week for Thanksgiving, and this came up, and I was wondering about how to handle this. You know, as both as white and as black.
Mm-hmm. Well, we could start with the idea of this move, which is really very tactical. When white plays the knight's move and black attaches here, there's a lot of potential for the game to get very exciting. Because if white covers here, and originally the idea that we had was that this is supposed to be bad for black, because this exchange here. Let's mark the exchange here. This exchange is supposed to be a bad exchange for black. Unless black can do something immediately. That explains how black is going to cut here. And we get into this variation, which I could talk about for an hour or so, I suppose. And in the end, everyone would be confused about it anyway. So I'm not going to do that. It becomes very difficult. There's still some new variations that are coming up all the time. And in general, I get the feeling that people have decided that in most cases it's not so good for black. So that means that people will not be doing that so much. But still, if your opponent has a good idea of the variations, then it's a very dangerous variation to get into for white. So white has issues if white doesn't want to get into this fight. And when white plays the knight's move, like white could play something like, let's see, what could white do?
I mean, I can see all kinds of ways to get in trouble.
Instead of this move, white has the option of playing this move, for instance.
Right.
But then it would, black would probably extend maybe. Black also has the option of, and you can see this is giving black an extra option there. Black even has the option of playing here sometimes. So it gives black a lot of extra options. So the idea comes that if white really wants to avoid that, maybe white should have extended here to start with.
Gotcha.
And then if you have a lot of black stones close, like if you have black stones in the adjacent corners, in these two corners, if you have black stones, then sometimes white feels that he doesn't want to get pressured in the local fight because the wall can be attacked. So also there's the fact that this Joseki has come back into popularity. This is a Joseki that white can choose when white feels that if white makes a wall, maybe that wall will be attacked next. If white has that feeling in the and as I was saying, it usually is in a case where black has both of the adjacent corners. So black has strong positions in both corners. Then maybe white will want to take a local profit, local territory, as in this position. So this is also it's gained in popularity a great deal. I should say in most cases the computer says locally this is good for black. It says it likes it for the computer programs like it for black mostly in the local position, but in the context of a position where white wants to live locally, sometimes it's okay.
It feels a bit over concentrated for white to me.
Well, it's Gote, computer, and so black has a tempo to play elsewhere after that. Let's go back to black can play away after this. So black has to play away, and so takes control of the game. The AI programs really like to take the initiative like that.
Mm-hmm.
So to get back to the game variation, so white plays the nice move, and black bumps again. Even in this position, it's still a bit hard to say what exactly will happen next, because in the game, white played away like this, and we have black playing this. So this is fairly peaceful. Locally, actually, this is a very good position for black. Black has played all the key points and has a very nice corner position, and white's wall is not completely alive.
Can you just talk very, very briefly about how big that R2 descent is? Because I think that wouldn't occur to a lot of folks. They might think of the Atari.
Well, it's perfectly all right for black to play away at this point. But once black plays the Atari here, it's important that black continues with this descent. Because otherwise, if black played elsewhere, then white would play the Hane here. And when this kind of thing happens, this exchange that black has played here is very bad, because black cannot capturing the one stone would be giving white a big corner. That would be bad. So that's not good. And so once black has played that, black it's very limited, and he would have to play something like this, for instance, which would be locally a good result for white. It would be a bit painful.
Ouch.
So if black's going to play away, black wants to play away at this point, in which case we would be looking at variations like this, for instance. In which case black would not be playing that cut on the third line, but would maybe even be playing a cut on the fourth line, for instance, like in some cases. Of course, in this case, the latter favors white, so it's okay for white, but it depends. So let's see, where was I?
Black descends and then white.
So black descends. So this is a big move. Again, you note that white is not pressing there on the. I would be wanting to play that pressing move.
Yeah.
And so this works perfectly fine. I think this would. I actually looked into this variation with Leela, and it was pretty much the advised variation. So the move that I want to play is the same as the one that Leela wants to play. It would be very natural for white to want to press here from a human context. So even before we had AG-type neural network programs to tell us, we would want to press here and play the extension. It makes a nice little moyo. Yeah. But in the game, white just extends. No, white didn't even extend. White played the 3-3 point. So we have white playing a 3-3 point too. And in this case, black did not play the knight's move. So in this case, black extended. And again, this could have been the knight's move. Let's see, this one. In which case, white would play here. And this is a good point to explain what I was talking about before. So like if black plays this way locally, then white will take this point, which is a very important point in this board position. So that's probably good for white. But if black plays away, for instance, this is a big point, then there's the option for white to start this fight on the upper side, which is always an option that happens in this version of the Joseki. So when white plays that knight, when black plays that knight move at A, black has to know that if black plays away once, this could happen. And in this case, white has that marked stone in the upper left corner.
That looks scary.
It's very scary for black. For instance, if black continues with this move, which looks sort of natural, then you can see black's going to be put under pressure on the upper side.
Yeah.
And like the computer programs don't always get bothered by this, but it's pretty tough for humans to be attacked like this. So I think, again, I would say that it has to do with this marked stone in the upper left corner, the white stone at F16, gives white a very strong position there. In such a case, it's usually good for white when this fight starts in the upper right corner. White just has the strong local position to make it work. So that means that at this point in the variation, the upper right corner is still what you would call a hot spot, still an important fighting area. And if black continues this way, then white gets the big point in the overall position. So that's why black, and a reason I would say black did not play the knight's move.
Not necessarily right now, but there's a really good question which we need to address at some point today, which is the Lee Sedol retirement, especially, given that we spent some time with the man a few years ago in his retirement. So, but just thinking on that, or if you want to start to talk about it now.
Oh, sure, I can, while it's fresh in my mind. Well, he's still a very gifted player. He's still fairly young. It's a pity that he decided to retire. A lot of reasons have been given. So he's, one of the reasons is that he feels that, he's not satisfied when, something like to the effect that he wasn't satisfied when the computers would always be stronger than humans, even if he became the strongest human player. So he felt that was discouraging somehow.
Right.
And let's see, what else was a given reason? I forget.
Well, there was some talk about he's had some issues, with the professional association, and so there was some question about whether that was involved as well. But I think the more intriguing one is the one you've already, talked about, which is, we saw him when he lost. He's the last one to beat AlphaGo. AlphaGo beat up on Ke Jie pretty strongly. So I guess and I guess for one of the interesting things is you've been really excited with the whole AI development, and I guess I'm wondering, do you have any insight into why he doesn't feel that way?
Well, being one of the top players in the world, and for a long time he was the top player, he's obviously very competitive, and it's very important for him to be the number one. And you have to be that way to be able to stay there. So that could be it. So that's something that I haven't experienced, so it's sort of hard for me to understand that completely, I think. But I think, my feeling, a lot of the gossip on the net is about his problems with the Go Association in Korea. So that could be part of it. I think there's a number of reasons that sort of combined to make that decision.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction. As everybody knows, I'm a big tennis fan. And in the tennis world, especially, it's happened before, but it's happened a lot lately. Tennis players retire with great fanfare. Sometimes they just retire, sometimes, whatever. But a lot of them come back. A lot of them come back. Players are playing longer these days. So I think he's going to come back. That's
okay. Yeah. Well, there was at one point there was some talk of him moving to Canada.
Yeah, there was.
So the North Americans get going and wooing him to the pro associations there. Yeah.
All right, we'll get going on that. All right, back to the game. Thank you. And by the way, that question came. Who did that come from? Came from one of our Schleemjers. So thank you. Good question. Keep them coming. All right, back to you, Michael.
So before that, I was talking about how when black plays the knight's move here, the upper right area still is a hot point after this. White still has that cut on the fourth line. And that's my explanation for the Joseki choice of extending here, which is an attempt to cool it down. For instance, if white plays here, then that area is not so volatile. It's sort of finished for the time being. And black has the option of playing away. Black still has moves, for instance, like this one, which could continue a fight that we are becoming used to. Like if white pushes through, black cuts here and reverts to a common joseki that we've seen a lot of. Or if white does not do that, white could do this way, and it would be a different trade. So there's stuff like this that black can still do. But in this board position, black's probably just going to play away and take this big point. And so this is the idea that black has, and then we can see again that white is avoiding that by keeping the pressure on in the upper right. and black extends again. And again, we're seeing that black is trying to cool it down here so that black can get to that big point. Like if white, again, the nice move would be a very natural move, but black would be pushing here. So white crawls again. So white's keeping the value of that area, the local area, up, because at this point, if white plays here, this is still a very big move. It would be painful. So white crawls again, and black finally takes this point. But white's getting something back on the upper side. So this seems to be reasonable, explainable for both sides at least. Mm-hmm. And then white takes this big point. It doesn't matter that the ladder favors black. In fact, like if white played, if white played this way, for instance, just to get back to the idea of the extension here on the side. If white played this way, which is the head of two stones, it's the top, honey on top of two stones, which is supposed to be good. Like a lot of down players would just automatically play this way, I think.
Yeah.
But the problem with this is that black is going to end up with a pretty solid territory on the right side. This looks like it's going to be a territory.
Right.
And obviously, when it's on the 5th and 6th lines, the border of this territory is just a bit too high. So it's a bit too big, I think. So the idea is that white is not going to play that, but is going to dive into that black moyo later in the game. And that's going to be exciting. It would be very scary for a human player, but it's going to be okay for AlphaGo. So white plays an extension. It would actually not be good for black to take in the ladder because white would have this perfect ladder break. So that's just not going to be worth it for black.
Right.
So black jumps here. So at this point I would be usually thinking of how do I reduce the right side? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be thinking of diving in. But AlphaGo, first it takes this big point. And this is a nice point for black to play. So we're having kind of a digression here. It turns out that even if black does something like this, there would still be moves like this which would white would be able to use to reduce it a little bit. And then white would have compensation with different parts of the board. It would still be a fairly close game.
Wow.
So it's maybe...
It's hard for black to close the door completely.
Completely. It's just, however black plays there, I was giving this move. It's a 2-space jump from one side, but it's going to be 3 spaces on the other side. So there's still a little room there for white to bargain for a smaller territory.
It's also just sort of not the way. I mean, you never.
It's a kind of a very defensive move.
Yeah.
You don't often see a computer program, a modern computer program will usually not play a defensive move like that.
Yeah.
It just lets its opponent invade the moyos and it gets exciting.
But I was thinking a human player wouldn't play it either.
Strong human players don't play that way very much either. Yeah. So in this position, black is putting pressure on white in the lower right area. Mm-hmm. And would be using that attack to make a more solid territory on the right side. And we're going to see that happening in some of the variations. So white finally plays the pressing move here and then starts to attack. So black could easily play an extension on the side. So this would be, like it would be a very orthodox, normal move, you might say. But white gets to press from above, and this would actually be bad for black. Because although black can live on the side, white's outside group is going to become fairly strong. It's going to turn into a maybe even thickness, and so that would make it even more difficult for black to finish the right side territory. Mm-hmm. So black doesn't want to go that way. Black actually is going to try to split the two white groups here on the lower side and keep some potential for an attack. So for instance, if white extends here, then black will play here, and it becomes a bit more difficult for white to connect around the black group. Also, black still has attacks at B or A or B, I guess. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The order here is hard to say. The A is the easy one. B is also a move that black can play to mess with white's shape. It depends on what happens basically white at some point will probably try to enclose black, but black will have a lot more room in this variation than in the previous one. So white didn't do that. White played a very interesting move here, a wedging black stones.
Whoa! Wow!
And so in this other variation I was showing you, white had that weakness with the attachment at B. Basically, white is getting rid of that weakness. So if black covers here, white's going to connect and then jump. And white's group is pretty much, I could say it's alive already, because this group on the right has the cut at A to make eyes. Also, white has some space on the right side. So white's pretty much alive and will later invade at B, which will be very easy at this point.
Okay, help me out here, Michael, because I'm just looking at that diagram you have there, and I'm just feeling my wrist being slapped by all my teachers. You have what looks like two empty triangles, and one of them has a kasumi going off of it. I mean, right? I mean, it looks heavy. Am I?
Okay, it's not an empty triangle to start with because there's a black stone inside it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's not an empty triangle.
Okay.
It is sort of counterintuitive that white has wedged into a relatively weak black group.
Right.
But I think the point here is that white's group was not very strong either. And strengthening this white group has a direct effect on how big the black's moyo on the right is going to be. So white's prime concern is to make this group as strong as possible. And this position is pretty much alive with that cut at A. And the group on the left is a group, let's mark the group on the left. This one here is a group that AlphaGo and all of the AIs have always considered to be a pretty resilient shape. Once white has played that pressing move, the computer programs don't really worry about that group at all because white can jump into the corner or can press from above. There seems to be a number of ways white can handle that group. And so creating fairly strong white groups seems to be the prime concern here.
Okay.
And black didn't go for that variation. So when white played the wedge, we have black cutting here. It looks like a very dangerous move.
Trying to read that. It looks really complicated.
It looks dangerous, doesn't it?
It looks.
Well, the idea here is that in the game, white just allowed the ponuki. So in this variation, this is the game variation. Black is happy to have a strong position towards the center of the board. And I'll talk about that in more detail later. But the problem is what happens if white extends here. So black will connect and white will cut. And there's a problem here for white because black can continue with the strongest attack here. And white will cut once here. For instance, if white cuts on the fourth line, there's no way to capture those three stones. And this is it's just not a squeeze at all. It's a terrible squeeze. So white cuts on the third line. And quite often this would provide white with some aji. But in this case, it's just not working because at this point, the two black stones are connected to the corner. And white has to back up to the left to protect here. And black gets the key point in the center.
Wow.
And so with no issues at all, black has captured those, 6 white stones now. And also has a good position towards the center. So this is just too bad for white. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
So that means white has to allow the ponuki. So it's pretty much forced. And so the question is how to evaluate this. Black does have, I've marked 2 black stones. I should really mark the other one a different way. Let's mark this one with a square. So there's the triangle stone.
You're getting all fancy. You got 3 different marks on there now.
Got all these marks I can use, yeah. So the ponuki, I marked the ponuki too, didn't I? So the ponuki there and the triangle marked stone, they could be said to be slightly over-concentrated. It's a bit, just a little bit. I have the feeling that they're over-concentrated. It's not really a big deal, though. Even now, the triangle stone is still in a fairly good point. The square stone still has a lot of aji, and so it's not a completely wasted stone. So it's a question of how much the ponuki is going to work. And my rule of thumb is that the higher the ponuki is from the edge of the board, the further away it is, the more valuable it is. Of course, there's the idea that if you have stones right next to it, like in points like, I'm going to mark up the board again. Let's see, what do I do with this? If you have black stones in any of these points,
okay,
it fails to be a ponuki. It's not a ponuki anymore.
right.
And then it's just a wasted shape. So any of these mark points, the X's, destroy the value of a ponuki. They become a completely wasted move.
Okay.
In fact, arguably, any stones at X will be taking away black's eye space. So they're self-destructing. Otherwise, like you can, in the joseki, in many joseki, you have a ponuki that's close to the edge of the board, like that joseki I was showing you for the 3 point.
Right.
If it's on the second and third lines, it's not the ponuki that goes into the proverb. It's just a normal living shape, maybe.
You're talking about the proverb where it's supposed to be worth 30 points.
The proverb that says that ponuki is worth 30 points is, it's sort of a good idea, but it's not literally true.
Right.
It's in a way, it's sort of nonsense. But when it's pointing towards the center, it's arguable that it's very valuable and maybe close to 30 points. It's really hard to put a point value on this ponuki. And we're going to see that, and I was sort of interested to see how a computer would evaluate it. It does give black a good score at this point, I think. I'm talking about Leela, which is the that I usually use. But that's partly because the square marked stone is still has a lot of aji. So we can go into that. White invades the right side.
Wow.
Now black has this move. I made a variation here for black 47. I actually made 2 variations. This one is showing a kind of a traditional way for black to attack. White would play the key point here. And if black answers, white would have this forcing move. And if black pulls back, for instance, white can probably do something like this. And because that black wall in the upper right corner is not 100% alive, it means that white's going to be able to escape here. Black has to watch for that wall also. So it's not as if the whole group is going to be killed. So that's the idea behind white's move. Jumped back a little bit too far. And another variation for black would be this one. This is just a local variation. And to tell you the truth, it doesn't work yet. But assuming white answers with something like this, which seems reasonable, right? There's a lot of aji on the left there. Then black can play this slow-looking move, which actually cuts white off. Because even if white plays the nice move, black plays here. And if white has 2 choices. White can, let's see if I added both of them. Yes, I did. So white can pull back here, or white can extend. Pull back this way. But white has 2 directions to pull back. I could add this variation, which just gives black the double hane. And this would just be a collapse for white.
Oh, God. Everything dies.
Or if white connects on this side, it would be pretty bad anyway. So to start with, if white pulls back here, black can just capture the 5 stones. So this has worked for black. It's been a local profit.
Man, and it takes white a lot to capture those darn black stones on the side, too.
Yeah, well, they're going to die, but yeah. The fun one is this one, where white tries to save everything.
Yeah, we're trying to read that one out. That looks like it ought to work for white, but obviously it doesn't.
Well, yeah. Black gets to squeeze like this.
Yeah.
And white, at this point, white has 7 liberties, and black has 6 liberties. The reason people have a lot of trouble with these fights to capture is that they get confused and they forget to count the number of liberties. So to start with, it's very important to count the number of liberties. So white has a 1 liberty advantage at this point, but black can extend his liberties with this attachment. Like if white just covers here, black's actually going to be able to live with this forcing move. White's, that's not going to happen. White's going to play here, but still black can get some extra. This is just a simplified variation, but in this variation, You can see black has an eye. White doesn't want to make an eye here because white would run out of liberties. So we end up with this kind of thing. And we can see black didn't even have to do anything fancy. Black is easily winning by one move.
Nice.
So that would be a disaster for white.
Really, God, that's gorgeous.
Yeah. So to go back to the game, so black has that. The reason black doesn't do it immediately is that in actuality, white will be playing the Tari here. And the players will be fighting this Ko at the mark point here. And at the same time, black has to try to do something on the side. So black would be pretty busy. Black probably needs a few Ko threats to make this work. And at this point of the game, black doesn't have enough Ko threats. So black did not do that. But it's something that black will be looking at. So to go back to the game variation, black actually played this Kosumi. That circular mark, I think it's on the final move actually. It's not something that I put there. So black plays this Kosumi on the second line. This is a move that's worth remembering for amateur players too. It strengthens black wall and it takes the fangs out of that mark point that white is planning to play. So it's giving black's wall eye space at the same time as taking away white's eye space. And white is looking at the peep at the mark point. So black plays here. With these two marked stones, black has made a completely living shape for the wall. And it's very important to get eyes for your walls also. You're not invulnerable always. It's very important. It's usually a losing position if your opponent gets to attack your wall because you've invested a lot of stones to make what you thought was thickness. If it gets attacked, it's really bad. So this is preventing white from attacking the wall. It's also looking at moves like A and B later in the game to attack white's, well, it's not a territory anymore, to attack white's moyo on the upper side.
Mm-hmm.
So the two mark stones are not only giving black eye space, they're taking away some of white's eye space when black tries something on the upper side. So white curls around here. With this move, white is trying to get rid of the aji on the lower side. So the aji at A and B, it's not completely gone. So let's see, I've made some variations for black's next move. Oh, no, I didn't do that. That was wrong. So white's curled around here. So that gets rid of, mostly it gets rid of black A, but it hasn't completely gotten rid of black B, as we shall see. So black starts to attack here. This weird capping move would usually be at A. And there is the idea that it takes away the value of a move like this, for instance. Right. But I would still want to play at A for black. I would still want to play at A and more solidly cap the white group. So this is very weird. It's sort of hard to understand. But I think it has to do with the fact that black has that ponuki on the lower side, which is pretty much closing up most of the center anyway. So black is sort of taking away that eye at the mark point in a way, taking more attention on that. And white peeps in place here. Oh yeah. So instead of playing on the third line immediately, white plays this exchange first. So you see white is getting a little extra room there. And the thing about these games that AlphaGo plays that makes it really hard for me to explain it to you is that just as I'm trying to explain the position on the right, black plays away and it's jumping around, it's not cooperating. So like white's idea here is to get this shape on the right, which we're going to see later. Mm-hmm. And in the game, black starts something apparently unrelated on the lower side, right? But there's a very important relation here because white's right group, as I'm going to explain in a few moves, white's group on the right sort of depends on that peep on the mark point. And black's invasion here is going to manufacture an efficient way for black to handle that peep. So we're going to see that in action. White answers locally here. And black jumps around a little bit. And it all has to do with that peep at A that I showed here. It all has to do with this. Because at this point, black attacks the right side. Like it's leaving things in midstream all over the place. But the idea here is that white is going to need this. White actually played here. And black got to play at A, which is a very efficient move that handles instead of connecting at the marked point, black has captured 5 white stones in the process of connecting up. So instead of just simply connecting, black has captured these 5 white stones to maintain the connection. So it's a very efficient shape with those 3 stones, the ABC stones, working together to accomplish something. And so black didn't need to connect it to the mark point in this position. So why did that happen? I made a variation for white. So if white simply answers here, black will play the placement here and then push through and cut. So in this position, white is just dead. It's pretty much dead. In fact, well, at the very least, it would be very painful for white to be doing stuff like this. Yeah, it's pretty dead. This would just be very painful for white. However, black chose to. It might be dead after all. Yeah, maybe this variation. I'm sort of doing this off the bat, but it looks good for black.
That looks like one of my groups. Really big and really dead.
Really big and pretty dead. Yeah. So that would be bad. And so at this point, the fact that white did not play the mark point as a peep means that white has died. So to go back to the game here, this was sort of the killing move, and white at some point white has to play that peep. So in the game, white played the peep here, and black got to capture those 5 stones. So that was a very efficient attack by black.
Yeah.
And black peeps here anyway. And white answers. So now that white has that stone, black's going to play underneath. Yeah. Sorry about that. Now that white has that peep here, in this case, black cannot push through and cut. Like if this happened, obviously that move at A, the stone at A is making kind of a ghetto-like shape that the net captures the black stones. So that just doesn't work. So at this point, black plays the slide, the monkey slide, as they call it, and white answers. This white group is pretty much alive. We'll see some more exciting things happening to it later. Black pushes. The pushing move is sort of forcing. White answers, and now black pushes here. So we're sort of back into an opening-like position, but it very quickly gets exciting again. So after this, black invades here. Now this is a key point, a very effective invasion. Underneath is also possible, but white gets to connect up on the 5th line, and it's a bit more difficult for black to make this work. Just the fact that white stones on this side, they're sort of poking out into the center, so they have a lot of liberties that make it difficult for black to win this scenario.
Yeah, I just want to go back just a little bit. So with the capture of the white stone, I think a lot of people are probably wondering, right? With the capture of the 5 white stones on the right and the accompanying territory, that's a pretty significant capture. So that's good for black, clearly. What did white get out of that? I guess it's
the whole thing started with white invading the right side.
White invading. Yeah. So white got the invasion, got to basically erase black's territory on the right. So that's the trade-off. Right.
And it's very typical of AIs to handle, or strong players, that black did not actually try to kill the white group, because you see weaker players just getting very excited and trying to kill the white group. Yeah. You can see black was not only was taking those 5 stones, black also got these 2 moves in the upper right corner, which are actually very important moves. We're going to see them come into play later. And what black ended with sente, so black got a tempo there too. So it adds up to being okay for black, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now black plays the key point here. So this is hitting, it's still making some use of the stone at A. And it's also, in a way, you could say it's hitting the damismary of white stones. For instance, I'm talking about the 3 white stones on the right here, because if white plays white 1 here in this variation, it looks like a fairly intuitive move.
Sure.
White's trying to connect up on the side. Black will answer this way, and you can see at the very least black's going to get the squeeze from the center.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually will have a bad effect on white's right side group, but I'm not going to talk about that in detail now. It's just the big center would be good enough for black. And so instead of that, okay, here we are. Yeah. So white plays on top. Locally, this is putting some pressure on this black stone. Black plays a hane here. This is actually forcing. Like if white plays on this side, this stone here is very troublesome. And if white connects, like white doesn't have enough room on the side alone, so white has to find some way to capture this stone. If white connects, black's going to push through and connect, and then cut once here. And so I think I added some moves to this, actually, yes. In my original file, I just say that A and B are miai, but just to make that a bit more clear, I added some moves. And we can see that black is winning the semi-I here. And it would have been a different story if black did not have that marked stone there. So that sort of enabled this variation to happen. So that's just bad for white. White has to answer this somehow. So in the game, white didn't do that. So white, to get back to the game, white answered this way.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Sure.
Black pushes through. Now if white plays here, black will play the hane. This looks like trouble.
It looks like big trouble.
It's just white has trouble on both sides. It's not so good for white, I don't think. We could try to add some more moves, I guess. For instance, something like this could happen. This is threatening a ladder. And that's a collapse. So it is dangerous for white. So white plays the hane. This makes sense. It's a nice shape for the time being. But it's a really weird combination of moves that happens here. We're going to have black playing here. And now white plays this move.
Good Lord.
And the moves that black is playing actually make a lot of sense, because black has a reason to play that hane. And I'm going to give you the reason in a variation again. If white just connects here, which seems to be the natural move,
okay,
then black's going to crawl here. And although the crawl was effective anyway, it was a move that black could have chosen to play anyway, it's more effective with that marked exchange. And I'm going to show you how that happens. White will cover, black will play a hane underneath, and we get to this position, which already looks very dangerous for white. White has to play this. White has two groups to handle at the same time. There's these two groups of 2 stones and 3 stones that white has to save at once. The only way to do that is to cut once here. And black captures, and white can extend. And I just added these stones on the right side to show how black can force this sequence, and then black can just live on the side. Oh, actually, black didn't even have to live. Black wins the semi-I. So, and now to get back to that marked exchange, when black has that marked exchange, black can play the mark point, the hanging connection, to escape out into the center. So it's good for black to have that marked exchange. So that explains black's move. But white's moves are sort of weird, aren't they? The fact that white would play this hane and then play here. Yeah, it's a very strange combination of moves.
Very strange.
But the reason for this move is the variation I just showed you. It's just that connecting here would give black that strong attack here. So it turns out that I've decided that hane there, it's probably, that mark exchange is probably not so bad for white. And white was sort of dealing with a difficult position anyway. I think the game, black has a slight advantage in this game. And so white was probably dealing with two variations, whether white played that hane or not, the marked exchange or not. It was probably a bad score for white in both cases. And so it's just a question of which the computer liked better. Maybe it makes it a slightly more complicated board position when this exchange is on the board. So
I've noticed that sometimes in looking at using the AI myself more recently, that look at a variation and it can be hard sometimes because it's like, oh yeah, you could go that way, that's okay too.
Yeah, it doesn't really. Quite often, the computer choice doesn't change the score so much.
Yeah.
I think it could have something to do with how complicated the board position is.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So this is a point where black is ready to invade the upper side. I sort of showed you that a little bit, but there's 2 points that black would like to play. So there's this point, which if it worked, this would be the best move. Playing somewhere to the right, we'll discuss that later. Okay. So this is the move that black would like to play. And if white is going to answer at N18, then it's going to be a good move. And the problem with this is that it doesn't quite work. So I made a variation for that. And white can capture actually from the outside. And this is actually for Q players, this is something worth learning how to capture this black stone. It's not really, I don't think it's the Don player level. I think it's a Q player level. But if you don't know this, it's very important to know that you crawl as far as you have to. Like, for instance, let's put a sub variation in. If black extends, white can crawl as far. The more white crawls, the more liberties that those 3 white stones will have. And then at the last moment, you tend to cover on the top. So at this point, black will be losing by 1 move. Black has 2 liberties and white has 3. And like if white, this is a kind of a basic tesuji. If white is a bit too hasty in covering from the top, obviously white's going to lose by 1 move. So it's important to crawl as far as you can, but if you crawl too far, then of course your opponent's going to escape. So that's bad too. So there's the timing of covering from above is very important here. So in the main variation, black cuts here, white plays here. Oh, I did put that in. Oh, good. And on the right side, white has an eye there. White's going to win the semi. Like for instance, like this. Even if white adds a stone somewhere on the outside. So black stones have 4 liberties. White stones have 4 liberties. It might seem, but actually, black has to play a move at this point to start the semi-high. So this white group actually has 5 liberties because we have to include that mark point at P19. So white's going to win this semi by 1 move. But that was I think if white had to do it, white could have improved that by 1 move, but a 1 move win is good enough.
Sure.
Yeah. So in the game, okay, back in the game. So black chose this one. So the other variation I added was this move. This is a move that black would play if black was sort of hoping to get that point. It would be preparing to slide in here, and this time it would work. But the problem with that move is that white will not answer that way. White will play from this side. And since white has already played that mark point in the corner, white's corner is strong, white's side group is strong. So it's just a weak black group that's going to be floating in the center. That's going to be bad for black. So black goes right up against the white group. And we can see these marked stones in the corner are starting to work because this white group, it actually doesn't have eyes yet. So for instance, if white plays this way, a very natural way to attack the black group, black is going to escape out into the center. And in this fight, white needs to add a stone to that upper right corner, I guess, group, because otherwise the group is not going to be alive. White can live by playing something, for instance, like this. This would create a living shape, but it would be a bit painful because white would be losing, with the forcing move here, white would be losing territory on the left. And eventually white would be losing territory because black would be able to force from the corner too. So it would be something like this. A very small, painful life.
And I assume that the corollary is that the black not only has destroyed that, but also that thickness on the outside is going to turn into some points for black.
It's going to turn into some points in the center. Exactly. So since white's group on the right side is not completely alive, it seems fairly natural for white to come from above here, to close black into the side. So this is where the game starts to get very tactical. Black plays this way. This is very natural. It's a typical way for black to make a life. In this case, I don't think black is going to play the ko, although black could. I think it would suffice for black to play like this and just reduce from above.
Yeah.
And you can see white's not going to be able to connect on the side, so it's playable for black. So white just covers from above. And let's see. So black plays the hane. This is a natural tesuji. White connects. And now, obviously, you might think black wants to extend.
I would.
Okay. I actually made a number of variations here. I made this one, and I made this one, and I made this one. Yeah, I remember this one. This is one where I sort of messed up. So there's okay. So it's going to be easier to explain this variation after I've explained the other variations. So I'm going to start with, what do you think of this move?
I kind of instinctively like it because it looks like it's almost alive, but I have a funny feeling about it. It's also, I kind of like the slide a little better.
Yeah. Well, the problem with this move is it gets a bit cramped. Black should be able to live, but it's going to be a bit cramped. The other option would be to fight the ko there, but it's going to be a bit one-sided.
Yeah, that's a tough ko, right?
Yeah. So I don't like that one. The natural move, obviously, is to play here.
That's natural. It's a little scary. I can't quite read it out, but that's sort of my instinctive, get yourself some more room, right?
Right. It's a very natural move. Like, even a very strong player, if you're playing a lightning game, you might say, there would be a good possibility you'd play there. Problem is that white gets to peep here.
Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch.
And obviously threatening a cut on the third line is double a target. So usually black would want to play here, but white pros. And this is just not going to work for black. And black doesn't have enough room to live. So this is really severe. And so what's the other option?
Well, the slide, the nice move slide.
The slide. Okay, let's do the slide. So with the slide, white wants to keep the option of the peep. So for instance, if white plays here, now the peep is not working.
Oh, that's different. Yeah. Okay.
So that's a reason to play that slide.
Yeah.
But white can counter that by playing the attachment here.
Okay.
And then white gets to cut here. So it's not so satisfying for black. Black will be able to make a life, but it's going to be very small and painful.
Small again, I see. Yeah. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
So what's left?
Something crude like L16 can't possibly be right. That's just
you're getting crude enough almost, but it's a crude move, but it's a bit better than that.
Oh, I don't know.
So to show you
that one? Really?
Yeah, this is also a very crude looking move.
Yeah.
But it's very effective in that it gets rid of that peep on the second line. So white has to connect, and black gets to extend. So now it's perfectly okay.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Right now, that black group is alive. Right now, it's going to change.
Of course.
Yeah. So white cuts here. This is a cut that was sort of pending for a while. White is threatening to save the 5 stones. Mm-hmm. So black connects here. Mm-hmm. And white's going to get a bit of a squeeze here in the center.
Yeah.
So white is putting pressure on.
Wait a minute. What about that Panuki? What about our Panuki? or valuable
Right.
panuki.
Well, usually I would say just it's okay to sacrifice the stones on the panuki, provided you keep that perfect shape, right?
Right.
Yeah. Provided you keep the perfect shape, but black's not going to do that. Black's just going to cut.
Of course.
So now it's a kind of a spoiled panuki. But there's some reason to that. White has to play this to maintain liberties for those stones on the third line. I'm talking about the potential of a black Atari here, which would be really bad. So white is extending his liberties here. Black extends. This is an important move. Without that, white would be able to play this squeeze. It would not only be big in territory, it would fix a lot of problems white has on the right side. That stone at 4 is really fixing up white's shape on the right. And the stone at 2 is extending liberties on the lower side. So all of white's problems disappear when white gets to play that. So black extends down. And white gets to capture this clump of stones. Like, it's not a panuki anymore. As I was telling you before, once black has played this move, it's not properly called a panuki, because there's that wasted stone. The marked stone is wasted. So what is black doing? Well, one of the points that I'm going to make is that black can squeeze by playing at A and play all of those triangle marked points on the second block.
Oh, that is nice.
That is nice. You would jump at it, right? But black's not going to do it yet.
Of course,
not going to do it yet. So this is a very subtle move. The idea here is that if white covers at A, black's going to cut at B, and that's locally a problem. Maybe I made that variation.
Yeah.
So black cuts here. Black actually can cut here immediately. So in this variation, white has to protect the right side. So white is alive now, but black gets to escape in the center.
Okay.
So that's idea number 1 here, that black can escape in the center, and black will then have a threatened marked move. That's going to be a ko, which I'll show you later. That's going to be a ko on the side. Just to warn you. And so white has to pull back at B, right? And black pushes through here. So it all has to do, I marked it here. There's that cutting point at C, which is not a problem really. If white cuts at C, black can capture in a ladder, right?
Yeah,
so it's not a problem.
Right.
But there is the fact that white would be able to play a peep or something. White has potential to force from outside. So there's that weak point in black's wall. Before black does anything on the lower side, black is trying to get rid of that weak point. So if white answers locally, which would be, it's sort of the advised move, unless you're AlphaGo, okay? This would be the advised move. Right. But then, of course, black gets to play this exchange and then gets to do this stuff on the side. So black would be able to get rid of any weakness in that center, that black group in the center. So that's the idea behind black's move. Obviously, it's not going to be so simple in the actual game because white plays away. So white plays here. So this is a forcing sequence against black's group on the upper side. White pulls back. And so how would you make a life here? You want to try to live for the black group?
For the black group?
Yeah.
Sure. Ooh, we can do this, right? We can take...
I could give you control. See how that works. I think you have control now.
Okay. Uh-oh, no, if I go there. Ooh, that doesn't look good. There. Ooh, man, not easy. Easy. Boy, that peep at K18 is just, well, just for the folks at home, I'll show them. I don't think K18 works at all. I think it's just easy. I assume Atari at L16.
Sure.
Have to connect, and then there's the Hane at M18. That's alive.
It's alive? It's a bit painful, right?
It is very painful, yeah, so that's not so good.
That would actually allow white to get a ko. But you could live by playing that 5 at J19.
Mm-hmm.
Like in this case, white gets to play a ko with this. As far as Smiggle is concerned, it's better for you to. It looks like we both have control. It's better for black to play. This would no, that would leave a code. It's not completely alive, so it's just painful.
Uh-huh.
But actually, you could do a little bit better than that by playing here. Actually, I could improve on your variation. In fact, I already have, but white gets to squeeze black anyway. And the problem with this variation, compared to the actual game, is that white's wall on the outside, with that extra capture at 4, that wall is very solid.
Mm.
So this is okay. This is okay for white, I guess. It's okay for white to have this thick wall here.
So what about just this? I mean, the other thing I was thinking about was just the Hane, make the house bigger, right? And 18.
Make the house bigger. Yeah.
So I don't think I'm seeing your variations for some reason. Maybe you have to.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I think there's a
maybe you should
control
give me
issue.
control. Okay.
How do I do that?
Oh no,
I think.
I'm just giving you control over and over again.
We need.
Can you give me control back?
Steven is telling me how to do that. Bottom right corner.
Bottom right, there's a little mark with number 4 next to it.
Oh, there it is. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Folks. We're learning. We're learning the finer.
So you click that, and you should be finding my name.
And I give you control. I think I gave you control.
Yeah, I think now that works. Yeah, I think I have control.
Yeah, we're both KGS refugees here, folks. So give us
So so we were talking about this variation.
You're right.
While black can live, it does give white a very thick shape in the center. So black was a bit more advanced, and you were talking about the Hane on the second line.
Hane, yeah, I was just worried about the peep at K18.
There's a lot of stuff you should be worried about. So black plays this way. What about the peep at 18, at K18, right?
Yeah, it looks so scary.
Looks scary. Now, this is where we get into, this is where we get into a position where I can ask you to kill it. I mean, black plays, maybe I'll just keep control this time. Where would you play to kill this black group? If you were white and you wanted to kill the black group, where would you play?
Instinctively, the peep at L18, which makes me suspicious, but that's
the direct, crawling at L18 is the correct way to kill this.
Okay. And then
this
just squeeze from outside, yeah.
Yeah, how did that variation get into there? Okay, there's this way. And this is just a 5-stone nakade. It's dead.
Yeah.
And this is the correct answer.
Oh, cool. Wow.
So it's dead, but
all that life and death study paid off, right?
Yeah. The problem is there's a continuation here.
I mean, there's always a continuation.
And it's going to cut in the center.
Oh, I wondered about. Yeah.
The basic problem here is that this black group with the 5-stone nakade has a lot of liberties. Like it has more than 10 liberties. It does.
Yeah.
When it has more than 10 liberties, it's going to win a semi against, let's mark the white group in the upper right. This white group is going to lose a semi if the two groups get into a semi. So black cuts here, and we can see that white's in trouble on both sides.
Oh my goodness. This is getting really hairy.
When white tries to save those 6 stones, when white tries to save these stones.
Right.
The group on the right is just going to be surrounded. So it's just a very easy win for black. This is. Black's going to win the
I wouldn't call it easy, but okay. I see it. So if I see it, it must be easy. All right, fair enough. That's crazy. It's funny because way back when I was looking at that goofy Connect, I was kind of looking. It looked like there was some Aji. I didn't think about the cut up. I was thinking about just the gross push through at L15, but of course the cut is much more interesting. Wow, so that's fascinating. So the dead group is got.
It is dead, but it doesn't die. Yeah, white can't go after it.
If this was Sherlock Holmes, that'd be the name of the story, the dead group that didn't die.
Yeah. Well, in actual practice, it doesn't always work the same as it does in the life and death problems.
Right.
And so it's a move that would be a human player would want to play, but it would be very scary when you know that this is a dead shape. But white plays away. And now black pushes through in the center. And you have to remember that going back to this position here where black played this move, I was saying that, for a human player, I would sort of advise you to play at A. Because bad things happen if you don't.
Yes. So totally, I wouldn't even think about playing anything other than that. So
now we get to see what bad things will happen. So black pushes through in the center. And if white, let's see, what variation should I show you? So in the game, white played the bamboo joint here. If white tries to capture, these 6 black stones are dead. But black can push through here with Sente. Very quickly, the right side is dead. And that's not even worth calling a Semego problem. It's very simple. It's just dead.
It's dead. Wow.
So that's the idea. That's why white sort of connected there. But, there's other things that white wanted to do, I suppose. So white answers on the right. This means that black is going to escape in the center. I never showed you that variation on the lower side. So there is this variation on the lower side where black plays here. I should show you that now.
Oh, I'm wondering about that. Yeah.
So like if white had, let's do it this way. Like if white had played this way to play safe, then black would be ready to squeeze from underside. So if black plays here, now locally this is trouble for white. If white tries to play something like this, white cannot win the semi on the side because black plays this move with an Atari. Or if white's a bit more clever, white will play this exchange, but it's still going to be a call.
Big problem, yeah.
So that's bad. So in order to be safe, white would have to back up at some point, either play an Atari from the center or play an Atari from inside. And this would involve a ko. But at this point, black would just be playing the ko. For instance, he doesn't have any good ko tricks, but let's just say black can play the ko. Eventually, since other areas of the board are more important, eventually black will be able to take back the ko. And we end up with black playing everything on the side. Well, actually, that move was
so big.
But that's a lot of territory that black's getting back on the side.
Yeah, that's like, what, 10 points? 10 something?
Well, yeah, it's something like 10 points on the side. Wow. White did get a nice thick shape in the center, but that was, it was pretty thick to start with, once white had fixed it.
Extra thick.
Yeah. So that's what black has been threatening to do for quite a while now. But you can see that black was sort of waiting for the last moment, waiting for white to protect at one, and getting this profit in the center and then playing the squeeze. It's very important to do it in the right order. And then white didn't let that happen. It means that now black gets to do something more effective in the center. Black gets to escape.
So these are the dead stones that are not dead. So we had the dead group that didn't die. These are the dead stones that
they're one of the groups that didn't die. Yeah. There's more coming. So in this, white actually has to put a stone in the side.
Oh, how annoying.
It's the same race to capture that we were seeing before. If black plays this way, white wins by one move, but black can play this way. And black gets this ko here. This would be a loss for white. The better move for white is to play here, but again, it's going to be a ko anyway.
That's too big.
And it's big in territory locally. It also will eventually have to do with the remaining weak white stones on the lower side will not be completely alive either. So that would just be bad for black, bad for white. So white adds a stone to the side. And black gets a very nice shape in the center. And white starts to surround territory. This is actually fairly close. And so the game still depends on the end game. So black plays here. This has the double effect of, for one thing, it's now the upper side group. The black group on the upper side is perfectly safe. Also, black is still looking to attack white in the center of the board. So like if white answers here, white does not have eye space on the right side. That's one of the effects of black escaping in the center.
Mm.
So black can continue attacking like this.
Oh, man,
and we can see that black stone at C is making some difference. It's working to help attack white.
Yeah, that whole white group has like 0 eyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it can make one. So white answers like this. So white protects the right side.
Mm.
And so white's okay. If white plays a move on the right, for instance, if white had played here, white would have a perfectly alive group. So instead of playing that, white played another move in the center. So that's okay. So white's group on the right side is okay at this point. And so it looks like we're entering an endgame now, but it's going to get interesting.
Every time you say that, my little spidey sense tingles because
it's going to get exciting.
Somebody's going to die, I have a feeling.
In this case, someone didn't die.
Oh, okay.
But it was made very interesting. So this is just a forcing move black has just played.
Right.
You can see that white group, it still has to make eyes.
And this is all about points now. I mean,
points.
Nothing should die.
Nothing yet. So now black has played at A. This is secured the upper side group. It also is looking to play at B next, which is actually fairly effective.
Okay.
So let's see. White answers this way. We're going to see what happens when black plays B, because black gets this P. So that's a nice little endgame sequence. If white answers here, black gets to take the 2 stones. Otherwise, if white answers here, black can live in the corner.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
Pretty big.
Huge. Wow.
So which way would you play with white?
I mean, I'd be feeling a bit stroppy at this point because
maybe that was what happened with AlphaGo.
This dead group not only didn't die, it's now like causing all kinds of trouble. I don't know. I mean,
right. So AlphaGo went on the attack here. White played here.
Oh, yeah, that was where I was going to play. Sure.
Of course, yeah. So now the black group in the center is looking like maybe it's not completely alive.
It's a little bit thin, isn't it?
It's a little bit thin. If black pushes through here, black sort of has issues with the corner, so it's not really very good.
Wow. That's
cool.
I like that.
Yeah. So black played here. White saved the stones. Okay. So what do you think of this black group? White answered here.
Well, first of all, black's lower left corner is in a whole heap of trouble, and that black group still, I can see 2 gote eyes.
2 gote eyes, yeah. So which would you protect? The center group or the corner group?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I would protect the left side group and figure the center group would find some way to. Okay. I have not read it at all, but I mean the thing is that if white snaps off that left corner is starting to look awfully troublesome. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's all sorts of stuff happening here. Why don't I just show you what happened in the game?
Yeah, because okay.
Now, what do you think this move does?
It's a god-awful mess, actually. Let me see. Oh, now white's looking thin, too. Oh, dear.
Chris, could we take a short break here?
Yeah. All right, folks. We will be right back. We're going to take a short break, and Stephen will entertain you. So just
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Sounds good. All right. Stay tuned, folks. All right, we are back. Thanks for your patience, folks. And Stephen was supposed to entertain you, but then he had to help us with some technical stuff. So thank you, Stephen. Just a reminder, of course, Chris Garlock here with Michael Redmond. We're doing AlphaGo game number 34. And just a reminder, this is Giving Tuesday. If you want to support this streaming that we're doing, and of course the American Go Association, which has been supporting all this wonderful streaming, then Stephen will put up the link where you can do that easily and securely, and we thank you for that. Now, before we took our little break, Michael was totally messing with my world here because I had thought we were going into Endgame and all hell has broken loose. So I have no idea what's going on anymore, Michael. You're gonna
I backed up a few moves.
Yeah, you did.
So where black plays A, threatening to play at B. And I'm going to start by telling you that the reasonable move for white would be to do something to stop black from playing B. For instance, white could play here. And I believe that black's going to win this endgame. So that would be my explanation for that. Black could play something like this. So I think black's going to win the endgame. And that's my reason for white not playing what seems to be a fairly reasonable move. So this is why it gets really exciting. White plays this move, which is not really preventing black from playing A, and black goes right at it. And now white starts to attack.
That C18 is just like a dagger thrust.
It's a huge move. Like it would be more than 10 points if white had played the connection on the third line.
Yeah.
It's going to be more now that white has played away. And this move that white plays is going to cut black off in the center. It's also going to reduce some territory of black. So there's potential that this just is going to be a territorial gain for white. Like black could do stuff like black could have done. So let's go back. Black could have done this. In which case, locally, the two black groups actually get to connect. But you can see that black's going to be losing territory here. So this kind of thing could happen. And we can see that white has gained a lot of territory on the left side of the board. So this is one idea that white has. Black could have played here to live in the center. And I would expect locally you could see something like this happening. It's not as if black's going to die. But again, white's going to take some extra territory. Or black could live in the corner. It's no problem. Black can still live in the corner. And the center is probably going to be okay, but it looks a bit dangerous, actually, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. And so it would be very natural. It's very natural to be focusing on this immediate area because it looks so dangerous for black. And I think normally a player would be coming up with something like this just to get out of danger.
Right.
But AlphaGo plays in the upper left corner. And it looks like black is playing away, right? But I'm going to argue that this move is actually protecting the group in the center.
All right, counselor, make your case because I don't see it.
It's going to take a while for us to get to that point, but we're going to get to a point where I'm going to say that move has made a difference. It's going to take several moves, so don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay. I don't see it. I really don't.
At this point, the group in the corner is it's alive because. Right. Okay, so if white plays here, black can play the attachment here. And because of white's weakness on the right, let's just add some moves to that. Because of white's weakness on the right, for instance, something like this. We can see that those 4 stones, I'll mark 4 stones.
Yeah.
Looks like black's going to be able to pick up these 4 stones.
Right.
So that's not so good for white. Which means that when black plays here, the corner, black's going to have the corner down to the second line there, and it's going to be enough room for black to live. For instance, if white does something like this, then black would play here. Black has enough room.
Right.
So to go back to the game variation, let's see. Yes.
Oh, and while you're doing that, there was a question on Twitch about what happened, and just a reminder, so because we were on that weekly schedule for quite a while,
Yeah.
but then well, a couple of things happened, folks. One was the two of us just got really busy, without going into all the gory details, but we basically both got really busy. But we also, Babs Wanek, who has been producing us for the last couple of years, he also got really busy. And so that's when we brought Steven in, and we had to deal with some technical issues. Anybody who saw our last stream knows what I'm talking about, so that took an additional time. So, but we are back. That's the good news. We're back, and we've got Steven, we've got new equipment, and all things being equal, we should be good to go right through the end of this series. Plus, we're going to be throwing in some Redmond games because Michael had a bit of a winning streak while he was off doing, his day job.
It was just seven games, but yeah, it was a good period this year.
Yeah.
Some good games.
We're going to get a chance to. We're going to throw some of those in as well. So anyway, that's what we've been up to.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So back to the game.
Yeah.
So black is alive in the corner, and the issue is black's group in the center.
Yeah.
So white has created a false eye at the marked point.
Right.
And black makes an eye by capturing the marked white stone.
That's one.
So now that they're both false eyes, black has just the one eye with the marked white stone. So black cuts here. And you can see we're sort of gradually approaching the upper left corner area.
Sneaking up on your left corner.
Yeah, we're sneaking up on that. How I was saying that these moves here actually made a difference to the center group. You can see how we're sort of approaching those stones right now.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see the outlines here.
It's not very clear yet, but we're getting there. Yeah, okay. So you can just enjoy it getting closer and closer. And black connects here. Locally, we have this little semi-eye here. The black group has 2 liberties left, and the white group has 3 liberties. So white's winning this semi-eye by 1 move.
Right.
But it is a kind of a squeeze. So black plays here, and now finally it becomes a bit more apparent because black is threatening that cut at B.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did that one already. So if white plays here, which is the tesuji here, black can cut here. Well, let's just do it this way. This is actually a false variation.
I think
see. Actually, I think black would do better to play it this order, which is threatening white on the right. White has to answer here, and then this would be the safer way to do it. And you can see now with that threat in the center here, white has to answer on this side, and black can connect up to the corner, and that white.
God.
And obviously, this would not be happening without these 2 black stones played.
Yes. Oh, that is so clever.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh, that's just a work of art. I want to see that again in slow motion.
Okay, we can do that. So this is actually, okay. This move, this is tesuji to take away black side.
That is.
Locally, it's a good move. But black can force with this exchange, which is threatening to push through and cut on the right.
Yeah, I got
it's
it.
A forcing move. And then black can play here. And obviously, if white plays on the left here, black's going to have eye space now. So that would change that false eye into a real eye. So white would want to answer here, but that just collapses. So you can see how not playing that squeeze in the center figures into it because white has to answer at 9 here.
Mm-hmm.
And then black gets to connect to the corner. So it's a nice sequence.
It's a beautiful sequence. But of course, it's not the game sequence.
So white answers here. This is protecting the left side. For instance, if black had answered, where did black play? Black played here. But if black had answered with this, then the left side is no longer an issue. For instance, let's just have white play away somewhere. The left side now this would not work so well because white would be able to capture like this.
I see. Okay.
And that's all because white started with this stone. So that white is getting rid of that bad odds.
Right. Got it.
And so black plays here. This is threatening to cut at A. So white has to answer that. It's still not alive. It's still not alive, so black cuts here, and white cuts here and answers this way. Otherwise, if white had connected here, then at least this would be become a forcing move. So that would be painful. So white plays here, and now black plays away. And now, what about this black group in the center? Do you think it's completely alive?
Well, I think so. Yeah. I do. I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I feel pretty good about that.
Yes, still?
I was looking at that area, and it looks a little concerning. Yeah, maybe there's a problem.
Maybe there's a problem? Do you want to try to live with black?
No, there's a problem. Okay.
It's perfectly alive. It's perfectly alive. All black has to do is play here. Here. But then this would be bad for black because white has gained territory here and white has the tempo to play at A. And that's really important. The fact that white gets to play at A too.
So the living is almost, yeah, I see. So living is it can live, but it's not enough.
It's not optimal. So strictly speaking, it's alive, but AlphaGo doesn't play it that way. That's the interesting thing. All black has to do is to play here. Oh, sorry, I'm getting into a different. All black has to do is play this way, and it's going to be alive. But it doesn't. It plays this way. And so white gets to connect. White could connect here. White could connect here, but then black would play this way. And this would be bad, right? White loses this way.
Oh my goodness.
So at this point, white would have to, I think, let's see, how did I make that variation? White has two choices. White would probably want to play the Atari here to stop black from doing that, right? If white plays here, black plays the Atari here.
Right.
Black lives.
Right.
Now to compare with the previous variation, which is this one, white has sent it. White has the tempo to play at A.
For sure.
In this variation, there's 2 points white has to play. White has to play both A and B. Black's going to get one of those 2 points.
Wow. That is some high level stuff right there.
So by playing this move, which is not alive, I'm going to show you why it's not alive.
I know.
It's not alive. But if white plays this way, it's going to live when black plays here. And that's not correct, so white's going to play the other way. And we're going to get into this variation where black lives, but the difference is that white has not yet played that big move at A. And in fact, so A and B are MI, and it's going to be a win for black. So the game is close enough that this one tempo difference is very important.
So what I'm trying to figure out, just looking real quickly at what the point difference is between playing at A and playing at B, because...
Oh, you mean in that position?
Yeah.
A is 8 points.
8 points.
So we could make the variation. If white plays here, black plays here. White's probably going to continue here anyway. So it's very clean. It's just the 8 points plus 2 points to do with the squeeze. So so it's about 10 points.
Right. And the other
They're
way?
both about 10.
They're both about 10 points.
I think B is slightly bigger. Like if white plays here and black plays here, obviously white has to connect here. Otherwise it would be an Atari. But you can see in this variation, white's going to be adding 2 stones here to capture the 3 black stones. And black gets an extra point in the center. So that's actually 11 points.
Wow.
So they're about the same size.
Wow.
But the point is that if black gets to play one of those 2 points, it's going to be a win for black.
So wow.
So it's going to turn into, but that's this variation where white has allowed black to live. White doesn't have to allow black to live. So just to clarify, at this point, white has played the Tetsuji. Black had the option to live with this move, but passed it by because that would allow white to capture 3 stones with Sente.
Mm-hmm.
So black captures 1 stone. White has the option to capture 3 stones anyway, but then it would be a 1 tempo difference, and this would be a loss for white. So white passed that by. In the game, white plays here, and this leads to a Ko.
Of course it does.
Because if black just captures the 1 stone, now this time it's okay for white, because white can play an Atari from behind.
Oh.
And black just gets nothing. It's just nothing.
Yeah.
It could turn into some kind of a different kind of a Ko, but let's not get into that.
No.
That's a different Ko.
Right.
So black connects here. And it's a Ko. It's a Ko for the life of the black group. And so like usually you would just assume that this is terrible for black. Because,
I was just thinking exactly that. It's like it's this huge Ko for the entire group over 1 point.
It's over 1 point, but the point is that when black wins this Ko, it's going to be really bad for white. So white captures the Ko. Black has Ko threats.
Oh, local Ko threats.
So it's important that black has Ko threats, obviously. Otherwise, you just lose the Ko. But the other important point is that when black connects here, black has this huge follow-up move at A.
Oh, that's annoying.
Not to speak of this nice little territory that black's got in the center of the board. That's pretty big in itself. That would be enough to make most players pretty happy.
Sure. Yeah.
And it turns out white didn't have any good Ko threats. Like that, I've marked the stone in the lower left corner. That stone, having that stone there, was not only a big move, it erased all the white Ko threats in the area. So white was completely not having any Ko threats at all. White had no Ko threats anywhere on the board. So white chose this one, which is trying to attack black's group in the upper right, and black just ignored it. So yeah, this is kind of a typical AlphaGo move that it plays when it's losing.
Right.
And white resigned at this point.
Yeah.
So the upper right corner, it might look a bit dangerous, but actually, for instance, white has to start here if white wants to attack. If white wants to take away eyes from black, white has to start here. It's very easy for black to make a living shape.
Yeah, even I saw that. That's pretty. Even I would have ignored.
Or if white plays this way, this is actually the stronger way to attack, but black can play it at this point. And at this point, already the marked white stone is captured. So black has an IE there. And I think I went into more moves here. So just to clarify, if we get into something like this, even this is alive because black can make an eye on the right side. Even though it looks like it's not an eye, as we're at it, white has run out of liberty. So that's just a collapse for white. So there's no way for white to kill black on the right side. So this is where white resigned after playing that exchange. But basically, if white works at it, white can capture the group at A. White can capture that's 8 stones there. But also black has the capture at B, so it's going to be not good enough for white. For instance, I would make a variation something like this. This would just not be good enough for white.
So it's really interesting, Michael, because at least if I understood you correctly, black was in a situation where he was losing, or it was losing by a point. But
No. Black was winning. White was losing throughout most of the game.
Right. But at the key point there, black was, I think you said that black was down by a point, but by creating the Ko.
Black would have been losing if black had just lived.
Yeah.
But it didn't, obviously it didn't intend to do that from the beginning. That wasn't, something that was going to happen. It's not something that it was intending to play the code to start with.
Wow.
Yeah. But this would have been a very close game at the very least.
Mm.
I feel comfortable with saying it would have been a close game.
Mm.
And maybe a loss for black. I didn't really investigate that fully.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Creating the well, it really doesn't have a problem with the code though, right? It's got much better code threads.
The code is much better. Well, even I can see that the code is much better for black. It's just sort of counterintuitive to fight a code for your life when you can easily live, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it's demonstrated here, it's obviously much better.
It's a much more complicated and much scarier, but much more entertaining way. So yes. we like that. Wow. Well, that was exciting. I hope everybody watching enjoyed that half as much as I did, and really, really good stuff. Couple of things, housekeeping before we wrap up. First of all, thanks to everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed our little sneak stream here. And as I mentioned at the top, we're pretty much going to be all Twitch and all OGS from now on. And that's just going to be so look for that. When we do it, either we'll announce it ahead of time, or we may just spring it on you, and we'll post it on Twitter and Facebook, and of course on Twitch, and of course spread the word, and we'll do that as well. Thanks to the AGA, thanks to all of our members of the AGA. We appreciate all the support. We encourage you to join the AGA. It's a great organization, does great stuff like these streams and lots of other cool stuff you can find out about at usgo.org. And if you want to support the AGA and the streaming, Stephen will put up the link there. You can make a contribution today. And there's also the American Go Foundation, where you can do tax-deductible contributions. And of course, thank you to Michael. It was good. I can't wait to hear more about your winning streak and to see more of those games. And I know you had a busy summer, but it's good to have you back. And and thanks also to Stephen who is our new producer. And we appreciate all the work that he's doing as well. So with that, we will call it a day for now, and we'll see you guys again soon. I think we'll probably start launching maybe as early as this Friday, posting on. We have a couple, as I say, in the can. Games that we've done before, and then after that, we'll just go with the live streams as well. So thanks again to everybody. And Michael, if you could just hang on once we sign off here, so we can do some bookkeeping on that. And same thing with you, Stephen. All right. Thanks to Michael. Thanks to Stephen. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you next time.